morning everyone, welcome to our latest game, and this is the first outing for our new game mat we got from Jules for Christmas. So we're also going to be having one of our very first games with the Russians and all the Russians I showed in the Christmas video. So we're playing a scenario here where this compact French formation has been withdrawing across the river line in the face of a counterattack by Russian forces. And overnight they've discovered that two Russian battalions have moved up and occupied this small village on the other side of the crossing. So we've got two regiments here of line Russian infantry. The French forces on the board. We've got a brigade here trying to manoeuvre itself to re-clear the crossing to allow the French to keep their lines of communication open. We've got a battalion here of Italians and a second battalion of Italians here. So we've got a small Italian regiment supported by a small French regiment. And then facing towards this larger village here, where we can see some Russian skirmishers just starting to come onto the table. Got some more Russian skirmishers down there. The second French brigade has formed up and is facing off against a possible threat from this direction. So you've got two battalions of French line infantry, a foot artillery battery, and another two battalions of French infantry. They don't know how many Russians are facing them, but this direction is the face of the main Russian threat. So we've got Dan and Charlie playing the French today, and I will be playing the Russians. All right, let's dice off for our ADCs and initiative in the first turn. Okay, so we've rolled for ADCs and activations. The Russians have activated those two brigades that are sitting off table, waiting to come on. The French have activated three of their brigades and have managed to get infantry assault off on this first turn of the game. Is that on the French or the Italians, Charlie?
French.
The French. Okay, so this brigade slightly at the rear here has got infantry assault. And this Russian brigade here was hesitant. So both of us are at -1. Let's roll for initiative, Charlie.
Oh, by the way, the infantry assault is to attack to take the road.
Okay, clear the road
Yeah.
and the supply lines. So the Russians roll a 7 and the French roll a 10. The French have initiative and can move first in turn 1. This will be a 12-turn game. Okay, so the first Russian brigade has started moving up through the woods towards the left-hand side of the French position as they sit. And you can just see the second Russian brigade is just moving in march column through the town and also approaching the French lines. The French and Italians under Charlie have redeployed. They've moved their French into columns in preparation for attacking across the river, and they've moved their Italians up to volley. But otherwise, the French defensive line has remained pretty much unmoved. All right, let's move on and let's have firing in turn. All right, skirmishers are fired. The French artillery is going to open fire against this Russian battalion. The Russian battalion will get cover from that hedge line, so this will be -1 for this shot. And he rolled pretty well. We get a 9. That's reduced to an 8, which at effective range, Charlie, is 2 casualties. So 2 casualties on the purple flagged Russian unit. That's it for French firing. Is that right, Dan?
Yeah, I don't think anything else will be in range.
Okay, and now we'll do some return fire from the Russian skirmishers and then move on to turn 2. So turn 2, and not a great set of ADC rolls for the Russians. Unfortunately, their two brigades that are just emerging from the village both went hesitant, including the one that was trying to get infantry assault off. Clearly the sign of this formed up French position caused them to waver. For Charlie, his Italian and French brigades facing across the bridge also went hesitant, and the Russians do have initiative. So the Russians will move first as we move on to turn 2. Okay, so skirmisher fire exchange from both sides, no real effect. The only serious fire in this turn will be Dan's artillery again. They've got artillery assault, and they're going against this purple flagged unit for the second time. All right, effective range, let's go. A 7, which is 1 casualty, and 1 more casualty from the casualty dice. So that's 2 more casualties on the Russian unit, no more discipline test. I think that takes them up to 5, is that right, Charlie?
4.
Up to 4, all right, so they've lost 1 step of effectiveness. All right, that's it for turn 2, on to turn 3. So better for the Russians this turn. All of their units on the right-hand side of the table have gone active, so they can carry on with their assault. For the French Italians, they do have a hesitant French brigade, but they have won the initiative. So on we go with turn 3, French charges, and then movement first. Okay, so for the Russians, they have a attached battalion gun that's now moving up to join the regiment at the river. Otherwise, the Russians continue to make progress. Their Jaeger battalions are just starting to emerge from the village behind their skirmisher screen. Their grenadiers are working their way through the village, and they've deployed a foot artillery battery against this hedge line in sight of the French, and their other battalions are now pushing through the woods. The French are about to fire again with artillery assault. What are you going to target, Dan?
Target that one because it could bounce back. It bounce for into the unit behind it.
Okay.
We get 3 combat dice because he's also in column
Y-
and at effective range.
We'll just check that, just to make sure that's right. I think you're right, Charlie. Yep, Charlie's right. So it'll be three combat dice plus the normal artillery fire because he's got artillery assault off and the column is indeed at effective range. Let's see what we get. Wow, that's 2 extra casualties and an 8. So that's 5 casualties, I think, in total. Let's just check what an 8 is at effective range, Charlie. An 8 at effective range is 2 casualties and 2 extra, so 4 more casualties on where they were.
8.
So they're on 8 now. So Russians taking a lot of damage from the French artillery fire. Let's have a look. I think they're below the crest of the hill, so you can't get bounced through.
Will they have discipline test?
Not for 2, because it was only 2 on the raw roll. So no bounce through there. And that's it for French firing. We'll do the return firing from the Russians and then move on to turn 4. So the Russian battalion gun continues to make progress, and the Russian battalion in the village has sidestepped to its right, partly to take itself out of line of fire from the Italians, and partly to make space for the gun to deploy. Over here, the Jaegers have started deploying out of the village. The Russian artillery battery, with all 4 guns, is now deployed behind the wall, and here the Russians are now starting to emerge from the woods. So as we move into shooting on turn 4, we're getting close to the action starting to happen. More fearsome fire from the French. Can they hold off and can they cause enough casualties to break through on the riverfront? We'll see as we do firing in turn 4. Okay, so fairly uneventful turn of firing there. We continue to exchange skirmish fire and volleys across the bridge between the Russians and the French skirmishers. The Italians and French form up for a potential attack next turn. The French artillery had a bit of a horrendous turn. They got a fatigue casualty being on artillery assault. That triggered 2 casualties on their own battalion when they were trying to fire at the Jaegers over there. The French fire here being unable to go against this Russian battalion because it's now out of their arc of fire. So that's it for turn 4. Let's move on with ADCs for turn 5. All right, rolling for initiative on turn 5. The French have 3 hesitant brigades this turn. The French brigade, which could go charging over the bridge, has gone active, but everything else was hesitant. For the Russians, all their brigades are hesitant, and they have infantry assault on the first two brigades arriving from this flank. Let's roll for initiative then. Dan, do you want to roll for the French? And I'll roll for the Russians. I roll a 9, they roll a double 1, the Russians get initiative. Okay, so here on the left flank, the Russian hordes have come charging out of these woods. Let's see, we'll have some defensive fire first by the French. Let's start with the left-hand battalion in line. Dan, do you want to fire for them? 2 dice. You get +1 combat dice as well, so pick up a black dice. Okay, because you're firing at a column at close range. This is a standard volley at close range. Let's see what you do. A 7 and a 6, you get 1 extra casualty, and a 7 does 2 casualties, so that's 3 casualties on that attacking French Russian. All right, so they are indeed only on 11 casualties, so they are still there, but they're in trouble. All right, and then a volley from your column, Dan. Same again, 2 dice plus 1 black dice. But this will be a half effect on the blues, because you're a column. Okay, an 8.
It's a castle wrong first.
An 8 is a standard volley, is 3 casualties. We round that down to 1 casualty on the attacking Russian column. All right, we'll now do the charge. Okay, rolling with the Russian battalion on the right first. They're on -4 because of the number of casualties they've taken. Wow, they rolled an 11. That's pretty good at -4. So, Dan, now let's roll for the French line.
It's hard than 7. Come on, man.
Yeah, an 11. So the French win by 4. The Russians will be thrown back. Okay, against this attack, it's +1 for the French because both sides have attached their commander. And I did these the wrong way round. I should have realised I was likely to lose that other battalion. But because I'm faltering, the Russians are on -1. So we get an 8. The French get a 7.
+1 is
8. I'm going to try my reroll. Yes, an 11 goes down to a 10. A 10 versus a 10 versus a 8. So the the Russians win by 2. So the French continue to form up and apply pressure to this Russian battalion in the hope of getting across the river. The Italians here have about face to provide some support in case the Russians break through here. Over on this side, the Russians are now debouching from the town. They're Jaegers in the lead, and you've now got Grenadiers appearing alongside them. The Russian artillery has fired, but caused no casualties on the French artillery. It's now French firing. We're going to start with a volley by this French line battalion against the Jaegers who've just moved up opposite them. All right, Dan, let's see what you can do. A 4. That's a dramatic. The powder clearly has got wet being too close to the river for too long, and that will be no effect. Loss of fire discipline, actually, so they can't move, but they probably won't anyway until next turn. Inferior volleys for them in the future until they've not moved for a turn. All right, they fired. Then your guns, Dan, what are they going to fire at?
They shoot at that one.
Yeah, they're going to shoot at the Grenadiers. They'll go through the skirmish screen. I think they're more than a 12-inch range, but we will need to check that. So they'll be at effective range. Let's roll 2 dice. 3. They take another fatigue casualty. Really not a lot of luck for Dan's artillery this turn. These 2 battalions down here have already fired in the charge phase. And over here, Charlie, you fired, didn't you? And you caused some casualties on the Russians on the other side of the bridge. All right, that's it for turn 5. We'll probably take a break now and then come back with turn 6. As Dan reminded me, I was getting a bit premature there and I'd forgotten the charge result down here, or the melee result. So the Russians go in here, they get 6 dice. The defending French get 4 as they're unformed. Let's see how the Russians do. Oh, I had a 6 there and I knocked it over with one of the other dice. So only 2 casualties for the Russians. The French have a chance here. And the French cause 2 casualties. So that is a draw. All right, so a disastrous roll for the Russians on ADC. So the French have actually rolled how many activations, Charlie? 3. The Russians only got 1 of their 4 dice. They got 2 1s, a 2 and a 6. So we have no re-roll for this Fulter test. Let's see what we do. A 4. That's not too bad. I think that's a rally, isn't it, Charlie?
I think
Let's just check. For a line battalion on a 4, they rally. So they step back if we have formed enemy within 9 inches, which we do because we have this formed line battalion here. So the Russians will step back and be hesitant, but they don't break. Okay, so only 1 charge this turn, as a good chunk of the Russians on this flank are disordered, as are the French, but the Jaegers have charged in against this French line. So defensive volley first, Dan, from the from your battalion. I'm in line, so you get no bonus dice, so just 2d6. What'd you get?
Double 1.
Double 1. That's what's the term for it, Charlie?
fire discipline.
Fire discipline. Lots of fire discipline and no casualties. All right, we'll go on to the charge result. Both rolling d6. Hang on, and I'll just get myself some time. All right, let's roll the charge result as the Jaegers charge in. We get a 10. That looks pretty good. The French get an 8. So the Russians, at the moment are charging with Elan. Let's see what the reroll gives the French. Yeah, it could be. It could go worse. All right, we charge in, and the French go unformed, and the Russians make. Okay, the Russians have opened fire, and their skirmishers have done absolutely nothing. Really disappointing round of firing. The French artillery will open up against this French line battalion, and they roll a 6, Charlie, at effective range. That'll just be 1 casualty, I think. Yep, 1 casualty against that French line. All right, French firing. Charlie, do you want to go first?
Yep.
Fire your skirmishers. One casualty on the Russians by the bridge.
My volley against them.
They in arc of fire, yeah?
You just said they were. You said they were.
Because they've deployed the battalion gun on the end of the line, yep. So at -2,
9.
that's a 7
How many
at
volley is
effective
two?
range. Because you're firing... you're right, actually. It's not -2, it's a 9. So a standard volley is 3 casualties and a discipline test
They're
on
gone.
that Russian battalion.
They're gone.
How many casualties have they taken?
Now they've won 12 now.
Oh my gosh, they break, and that'll be a Falter test on that Russian battalion. My gosh, I didn't realise they'd taken that many casualties. I had started moving the other Russian battalion up to support, but Charlie's concentrated skirmish and volley fire has broken the Russian resistance by the village. All right, now Dan, you're firing.
Yeah. These ones.
They can
they
do.
were gonna,
They need to
were
form
meant
up.
Yeah.
You could put your you could have moved your skirmish screen back forward again, Dan, if you'd wanted to.
I would have done that if I'd remembered.
But you forgot. All right, you can fire your column. It would be at half effect because they're in column, and it would be
And those ones can shoot.
an
shoot
inferior.
as
The other ones can fire as well. I'd fire the line because you're unlikely to lose fire discipline if you fire the column. So this is at -2, so that's a 6. On a standard volley is 1 casualty against those skirmishers.
So that's one of them now. Because it's an L3.
Okay, yeah. So take the marker off and take a base off.
This is the opposite to the Russian shooting.
Yeah. Then the French artillery battery.
Should we fire at the wait? Yeah, we'll fire at the line. I think. battalion.
Fire at the lines that are coming through. That's probably at close range. It can do shrapnel. First casualty will be against the skirmishers. The rest will be against the line battalion.
And we'll have
So
bounce.
2 dice, and then 2
And
dice.
it's got artillery slot as well.
Okay, so 2 combat dice as well. 2 different coloured ones. Yeah. That's not too bad. 7 at close range is 2 casualties and a discipline test against the Russian grenadiers. All right, I'll just mark that up and back in a second. Okay, so the Russian Jaegers are charging in. See if they can do better than their regular line infantry colleagues on the other flank. 6 dice for the Russians. Another pretty terrible roll. Only 2 casualties. How can the French do? 1. Okay, so the Russians win and they will push the French back. All right, so great result for the French. The Russians failed their Falter test. They rolled a 1, they re-rolled, they rolled a 2. They only had 2 ADCs. So the Russian infantry can just see it has just managed to stay on the table, but the remaining battalion has fallen back to their baseline and allowing the French to drive across and potentially capture the village and secure their route of retreat for their force. The Prussians here on the right were hesitant. The Prussians on the left were hesitant. The Guards are active, but don't have infantry assault on them. So it's going to be a tough turn for the Russians. Let's roll for initiative. -3 on the Russian roll. We roll a 2. Wow. The French roll a 3. Did you have any hesitant brigades? The French just pull it off. French initiative. They can get across that bridge. Okay, so the Russians are desperate now. They've only got the Grenadiers as their active brigade, so they've sent the Moscow Grenadiers forward. They have charged the French guns. Let's see how the French can do. They've got a defensive shot. They have taken 4 casualties, so this will be at -1.
Come on. Sixes, please.
They roll a 3. That's nothing. So now let's roll the charge results as the Grenadiers try and charge in against the gun team. All right, so this is a +2 roll for the Russians. They're veterans, and the French artillery have taken quite a few casualties already. Let's see how the Russians do. They don't have any re-rolls. They roll a 7. That's average. Let's see what the French are. They're on 2 dice, please, Dan.
Oh.
What have you got?
5 at the moment.
Reroll the 1. Reroll the 1.
I wasn't going to reroll the 4. 7.
7, that goes down to a 5. So 5 plays 7, the French win by 2. That will be meleeing with Elan. Okay, so far looks like a reasonably good turn for the French. They've got to face that charge in the centre, which might mean they lose that artillery battery. But they've been able to reform their left flank. The right flank's in good shape. The Italians have about face now to provide some support to their centre. And the French brigade here has used its forwards order, which Charlie deployed just before they broke the Russian garrison with all of that combined skirmisher and musketry, and used that to storm over the bridge. And they're now in a good position to re-secure their supply lines back to their supply depot. So looking good for the French in their rear quarter and in their reserves. Just got to see how this assault on the gun line works out. All right, on to firing, and it's French initiative, isn't it, guys?
Yeah.
So French initiative, they get to fire first. Okay, so the Russian Grenadiers should win this one. They get 7 dice, and the French get 2. But I've said that before, and I've seen my rolling on the melee. Let's see how we do. Oh, that's pretty good. That's 4 casualties against the guns.
Can't win, but let's do some
Let's
casualties.
see how many they do back.
We could
They
do-
do pretty well. They do 2 casualties against the Grenadiers. We'll mark those up, but the guns are destroyed. So perhaps it's just in time that the Italians are released for the French for reserves, because those Grenadiers have ploughed through that gun line, and as expected, they have destroyed it. So there we are, end of turn 7. Only 5 more turns to go, but I think we'll probably get to an outcome before that. Let's roll for initiative as we move into turn. So some important Fulta tests. So the French did pretty well here. The Fulta test on this brigade for losing their artillery battery, they got a rally result. So they had to step back 3 inches, but that was it. Otherwise, the couple of the French brigades are hesitant, and the Russians over there did also rally on their re-roll, but they are still unformed on that hill. So we now roll for initiative, is that right? Or have we rolled for initiative? We've rolled for initiative, and the French have won initiative, so they get to charge and move first in turn 8. Okay, so Charlie rightly spotted that my Grenadiers were going to do a flank attack against one of those French battalions in line. So he used his forwards order to do a long bomb charge with those Italians of his, and he rolled a 5, which was enough. He needed a 5 or a 6 to charge in, and he got it. So his Italians have now charged the Russian Grenadiers. So we'll start with that one first. The Grenadiers get to do their closing volley. Okay, so the Russians did pretty well there, and they caused 5 casualties on the attacking Italian line, which will be painful. So Charlie, for you, that'll be -1 for 4 casualties and -3 for 5 in the turn. So this is at
minus
-4.
three
-3 because of your general. I'll attach mine, which will take it up to -4, and I'm veteran status, which takes it up to -5. Okay, let's roll for the Russians. They get a 5, not great. You get a 7.
I can't re-roll.
You can't re-roll, so you go down to a 2. So I've won by 3, so you will fall back. All right, rolling for this Russian attack to go in. The Russians are on -1 because of their casualties. They roll a 6. They go down to a 5. The French get a re-roll.
Come on. Yes.
They get a 9 against a 5, so they win by 4, and they will throw the Russians back. So end of turn 8, the Russian artillery fired, caused a couple of casualties on the French column there, and we had some volleying exchanges between the Jaegers and the French line battalion, but that was pretty ineffective. Over here, the French were hesitant, so haven't really moved around the bridge, and we will have to do a Fulta test because we lost our brigadier in the combat, and hence this Russian, I'll get it right, Russian brigade is hesitant, so I'll have to take that as we do ADCs for turn. All right, this looks like the crunch. So we've lost this brigade up here. We failed our Fulta test and had a Savoy keeper. So this whole left-hand brigade for the Russians has disappeared. The Russian Grenadiers have charged into the Italian line up there, and the Jaegers have charged into the French line facing them. But the French column, no longer having an enemy to face on this hill, have swung round and hit the 2nd Battalion of Russian Grenadiers in the flank. That will be painful. This could be the decisive turn of the game. What will happen as we work through these charges? All right, let's start with this far right-hand side one, a defensive volley for the French. So Dan just rolled an 11 for his defensive volley, caused 4 casualties on me. We're up to 11 now, so we have supports, but we're on -6 on this charge for the Russians. This doesn't look good. I roll a 7.
Are you going to add your general?
No, not to that one.
So
We will add it
they're on 1.
Actually, wait. Is it better for us to leave our one here, Charlie?
Well, you've got generals to each of the brigades, so you can add
Put
them one to that one.
brigade and one in that brigade.
Yeah,
So we got +1.
yeah. So it's at
So you're
-7.
So you're on technique on 0.
Yeah, so I'm on 0.
Come on, just need more than 6s. And I get a reroll.
Yeah, reroll.
Just need more than the 1. 4 to 6.
Victory.
Yeah, so except I attacked Charlie, so it's not quite
Yeah,
so
but we'll
dramatic,
still
but I
throw
am
them.
thrown. Okay, so we rolled that, and we got a -6 as you saw in the charge test. So the attacking battalion was destroyed, and it's fled back through its colleagues and unformed the 2nd Jaeger Battalion. So Charlie, you just did defensive volley for the Italians. What did you roll?
3.
Okay, so that's no effect. All right, let's do the charge results as the Grenadiers here charge in against this Italian battalion. Okay, let's roll for the Grenadiers. I get a 6. You get a 7. I think I stop and do a volley. Okay, so the Grenadiers didn't charge home. They stopped and volleyed and caused 2 further casualties against the Italians. Right, let's do the result down here as you charge into my flank. So it's -4 to me because I'm being charged in the flank. I've got my Brigadier attached. You've got your Brigadier attached. I've taken 3 casualties. You've taken how many,
2.
Dan? So that has no effect. I'm 1 morale grade higher than you. So it's a -3 roll on the Russians. Well, they did pretty well. They rolled an 11.
Got 9.
So 11 minus 3 is 8. So the French win by 1. How many are they on now? Okay, so the Russians had 2 full to test. The Jaegers here had to take a full to test because the French destroyed one of their battalions, and then the Grenadiers have because they lost and have retreating this brigade down here. I only had 1 ADC, so the Jaegers didn't get a die roll, had to do a savoir-faire and disappeared. We have 1 dice for the Grenadiers. They roll a 6, they do obey orders, so I can rally this unit that's in the village. But simply with 2 battalions of Grenadiers left, the Jaegers gone, the Musketeers gone, and my final Russian infantry battalion up there having 8 casualties.
And the police are surrounded.
And the Grenadiers are completely surrounded. It's a complete wipeout.
It was the Russians surrounded the French, but now the French are surrounding the Russians.
Indeed, it's a complete turnaround. Anyway, definitely a case of new model syndrome. All of the Russian units and Russian army destroyed. A great and glorious victory to the French commanders. Well done, Dan, and well done, Charlie. Hope everyone's enjoyed this game. And we have, by the way, spotted that one of my Grenadier flags is upside down as well. So we'll have to see if we can do something about that. All right, guys. See you next time. Cheers.